Thanks for everyone coming. My name is John McDonnell. I'm the Labour MP for Hayes and Harlington. I'm also a UNISON member. I've been a UNISON member since the union was founded. I used to be a NUPE member before we all merged into UNISON. I was a NUPE shop steward. So the union's been really part of my, virtually all my adult life. The background to this meeting, as you know, we've got the General Secretary election now taking place, ballot papers out there. It was important, this election, because really, I suppose I keep saying to me, probably the most important election that we've had in the union for over a generation, because it will decide who's the next General Secretary, and it will, as a result of that, it will decide the future of the union, the future direction of the union, how it will operate, and what role we'll all play in it as members. And my concern about what the future should be is that I want a union that I can take pride in, because it's a union for its members, democratically controlled by its members. It's a rank and file union. And to be honest, that's what we used to be. NUPE in particular, but then when we went to UNISON the same. We were always a union that people looked to, truly democratic, whose members took the lead in determining policy and then determining action, the role of the union itself. But I think in recent years, and I'm not attacking any one individual, but in recent years, I just think we've become more bureaucratized. The bureaucracy has taken over rather than the members. And I feel there's a lack of democratic accountability. And as a result of that, in many ways, the union doesn't reflect the views of our members, particularly when it comes to supporting them. So when this election was announced, I thought this is the opportunity now for us to have the debate about the future of the union. And I was looking to support someone who was at the grassroots, who was a rank and file member with experience of negotiations, who could professionally manage the union as well, but above all else was committed to being democratically accountable to the members, being a real member, building the union case, a real members union. And Paul Holmes announced, as a result of people asking him to, including people like me, he announced that he'd run as a candidate for the general election. And to be honest, I was over the moon, absolutely over the moon. I've known Paul over the years. The experience in the union is phenomenal at the grassroots level, branch secretary, serving on various committees, the NEC, and to be frank, he's devoted his life to our union, and he's a success. He represents his members. He makes sure that their opinions are voiced. He makes sure that he provides the protections to them that the union affords, and he backs the membership. And there hasn't a time when I haven't seen Paul lose anything. He's always won in negotiations, or if necessary, taken action. And through his work on the NEC, he's built up a reputation amongst many, many branches, and amongst our rank and file members, of being a terrific trade unionist. So when he said he was willing to run, and it's not a career for him, I think, to be frank, you won't say this, but it's a vocation. His commitment to people is such. When he said he would run, I was really pleased. And so what we've been doing is, over the last couple of months, holding meeting after meeting, so that members can meet Paul, listen to his views, what his programme is, and then also question him, and then make their minds up about whether or not they can support him in this election. I'm working hard in his support, because I think he's the right person for the job, someone who will reclaim the union for us and take it in the right direction. His policies, Paul will tell you about, but one of the key ones for me is making sure the branches are properly resourced. The money goes to the branches themselves. Paul has set out in his programme a whole series of commitments for the future if he becomes General Secretary. One of the key issues about Paul, he's been at the forefront of the various struggles for really protecting our members, advancing their wages and conditions, but also he's been at the forefront of the Equalities campaigns that we've been waging in this union on behalf of our members. And again, he's second to none in terms of his reputation for the work he's done on the ground. So I'm hoping that tonight's meeting, you'll be able to get from it what Paul is all about, and also, I suppose, a real feel about his view for the union for the future. Right, I'll shut up at that point, and we've got a list of speakers that Dan Carton has sent me through. The first one, um, I've always asked Paul to start the meeting off by just, in about 10 minutes or something like that, just talking about why he wants to, why he's standing, what's his program, what is he really all about. So our first speaker is Paul Holmes. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to thank John. My name is Paul Holmes. I'm the General Secretary election candidate. I want to thank John for all the work he's put into the campaign, because he's done the hard yards for us in this campaign. And I'm proud that he supports us. I'm proud that everybody supports us. And I've been a UNISON steward for more than 40 years. I've been on the NEC 13 years, been elected 7 times, never not been elected when I stood for election to the NEC. I first elected to Nalgo's NEC in 1987. I've been the branch secretary of Kirklees UNISON for 31 years, a branch of just short of 10,000 members. And one of the things we put in his manifesto and in his letter seeking nomination, some people asked me to pull it out really. It was funny. I realised when I looked back that somebody asked, you've got to make yourself human in your manifesto. You've got to say what you've done. And there were 2 things in there that people said sounded incredible. One was that in 31 years as branch secretary in the council, we'd had 1 compulsory redundancy, just 1 in 31 years. And given what's happened in them 31 years, that's an incredible feat. That's not a feat that I've achieved, it's a feat what the branch has achieved by solidarity. But the other thing is that I'd done over 200 disciplinaries, and most of them would be of a serious nature, because given my experience, and I'd never had a dismissal. Somebody says, you must have had. I said, no, I haven't. I've never had a dismissal. And so he can't put that in because it makes it look like you're glorifying yourself. I said, well, the object of the exercise is to say why you think you should be the General Secretary, what your record is, and what you think can be achieved. And it's no point hiding your light under a bushel. Now, what's achieved is through the strength of the union. I spoke to people in the mining industry who said after the 1972 and the 1974 strike, which the NUM won spectacularly, took themselves from something like 40th in the wage table up to the top. They didn't do any disciplinaries for 10 to 12 years. In 1984-5, after the defeat, they couldn't win a disciplinary for love nor money. And that's what it's about. It's about being organised, being serious, and being able to defend your members. And the 3 main planks of your campaign, the first one has been that we should double the amount of money that goes to the branches. At the moment, 25% of the subscriptions go to the branches. I think that should be doubled to 50%, because all the work's in the branches now. There's very little negotiations now take place at a national level, certainly in local government and higher education, further education. Virtually everything's at a local level. And, in my own branch, we had 3 or 4 employers when I became branch secretary in 1989. We've 208 now. And, branch secretaries are snowed under, and they need the money to do what they want to do. And it's what they want to do. Do they want to employ more staff? Do they want a bigger office? Do they want to get more lay expertise in? Do they want to, whatever they want to do, it's for them to decide. I want to change this union from people being told what they can't do to being told what they can do. The second part of the campaign is there's got to be a complete difference. In the rule book, it's really clear. It says we're a lay member-led union. Most members won't understand what that means, but most activists do. What it's saying is the union should be led by those who are members who don't work for the union, who work for somebody else and are a union rep. And that has changed more and more. The employed officials of the union are running the union. And if you want to run the policies of the politics of the union, you should stand for election. It's not by appointment. So I think really clearly that the 5 assistant general secretaries and the 12 regional secretaries of the union should be elected, because democracy is at the root of everything. If you're not elected, you're not accountable. If you want to be an employee, that's a work job, providing professional support for the union. And the final part of the plank of the campaign is there's so much cynicism about why people go for certain jobs. And this job pays £138,000 a year. And I've made it perfectly clear that my current salary of £32,000 is adequate for me, that the other £100,000 plus will go to the union's welfare fund. It's not because I'm a saint or I want to tell everybody that I'm better than anybody else. That's what I do the branch secretary's job on. My salary with the council of 32,000. It's what hundreds of branch secretaries of UNISON go out and represent the members on. There's nothing spectacular about it. If I'm going to say I feel the pain, I know what the issues are, my wage has been cut by 20% since 2008, then I can only say that if I'm in that position and I feel the pain. So I'm standing for election on this salary that I currently receive, £32,000 with the council, which is about £5,000 above the average salary of a UNISON. And for me, the union has got to change. And I get invited, I'm on the NEC representing all 430 local government branches. I get invited all around 4 countries. If there's a dispute on, you want somebody to come and talk to the members, then I get invited. And I get invited because I have something to say. I'm passionate about the union. I'm passionate about the members. I like the members. I absolutely like them because I am one. And I'm standing in this campaign in some respects as a reluctant candidate. I would support somebody who wanted to be the General Secretary, who had the policies and programme that I've got and experience. But people have asked me to stand because they think that I fit the bill best. Whether I do or I don't, I'm really clear what I'm standing on. I'm standing for change. And that change is to make this union more relevant. We can't have a situation, what we've got at the moment, where nobody from this union has been on question time for 20 years. We've turned invite after invite after invite down. We don't appear in the national media. We're constantly putting out publicity that we've got 1.4 million members and they're the biggest union in Britain. Our members don't think we're the biggest and we don't act like the biggest. We've got to change that. And one of the ways we change that is that all the union consists of is the branches and the members. Don't consist of anything else. Anything else, the region, the national union, the legal, Croydon Peyote camp, welfare, is support for the branches and the members. That's where the action is. When the members have got a problem, they go to the branch. And they don't want to hear that the branch isn't staffed because we can't afford staff, or we can't answer the phone because we haven't got anybody to answer it, or we haven't got facility time. And what we've also got to get rid of is second-class members, members who join online, work at private care homes that are in the voluntary sector, and we haven't gone out and negotiated collective bargaining agreements on pay or on disciplinary grievance procedures. So when they ring us and say, how's my pay fixed? Or I'm being disciplined, but there's no disciplinary procedure, there's nothing we can call on because we've negotiated anything. We need to change. The union needs, 27 years ago when we were formed, it was a different society. Everything's changing completely. Who would have thought 8 months ago the big issues in Britain this year would have been Black Lives Matter, the A-level results, COVID, free school meals during the school holidays. But things have happened this year that brought, them issues were always there. None of the members involved by them issues think they weren't there, but they've come to the forefront because something's happened. And we need to be feeling that change. And we need a General Secretary who is at the coalface. Now, I pride myself that I'd always rather meet the members than the management. What the members hate is when somebody turns up at the workplace because there's a problem and goes straight in to see management before they go to see the members. They hate that. They want to think you're responsible to them, and they're right. They pay the subscriptions, and we're not a bank. We're not there to keep £120 million in the bank or build big buildings on Euston Road in London. We're there to throw that money at solving the problems that the members have got. That's why they joined the union. The union is an aspirational thing. If you look on the union banners, it's about a better world, a better society, better terms and conditions for our members. It's not about how much we've got in the bank. We can always raise money if we're desperate for money, but we can't retrieve lost pay and sacked members and lost terms and conditions. It takes years to pull back if you ever lose them. And I draw remarks to a conclusion now. I'm really pleased to have this meeting. I really want people to ask questions. I'm keeping my remarks a lot shorter than I normally would do because I want to hear questions. And the members want to know what my answers are. Why, when you go and see the members on any issue, they only say two things. This is my complaint. What is your plan for dealing with it? And do I trust you to carry out that plan? They're the only two questions the members ask. And that's partly what's happened in the General Secretary election campaign. Why should I vote for you? How can you solve my problems? And do I trust you to solve them? It's the same thing. So we're here tonight. We've got the speakers. I'm really proud that people speak. I'm proud of our campaign because loads of people have come forward who I don't know, who've come forward. Some of the people involved in our campaign now, the election started yesterday, but the process started 8, 9, 10 weeks ago. Some of the people were supporting other candidates at the beginning of the campaign, but the more our campaign has gained impetus, the more people want to join us. And the issue about having a lay member as the General Secretary has become massive, that somehow we've got to get rid of the cynicism about people are in it for the money or people are in it for the expenses. It's been a massive thing for people in Parliament on massive expenses, eating subsidised meals, telling poor children that they can't have a hot meal during the school holidays has absolutely riveted people. They can't believe it. They can't believe that that's Britain in 2020. And I'm here to say, you don't need to be cynical. We need a union that wants to change. We need a union that wants to represent our members. We need a union that wants to get us out of the gutter and into a decent standard of living. And the General Secretary election is the start of that. But transforming the union to be the vehicle that does that is the main issue facing us. And I want to be involved in that. I want to lead that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that. I'm really grateful. The issues that you raise all the time, which I fully agree with, is making sure our resources go to the grassroots, to the rank and file members, and that's where our work should start and end. So we know every one of these meetings, and we've had people volunteer to come and speak who are at the sharp end of what we do as a union. And so our next speaker is Olfa, Atig and Salah. And Olfa, you're at Leicester City Council, aren't you? The Equalities officer there.
Yes.
Want to come in?
Yes. Yeah. Good evening. My name is Olfa Atig Ben Salah. I'm international officer for City of Leicester branch. I'm here because I love our branch. I love our union, and I believe in change. Change cannot be done if we don't stand for that. I've been 4 years in the branch. We made our branch change, and we have chosen Paul. I strongly believe as Black member in Paul, not because Paul is a nice guy with nice intentions, no, but Paul has proven that he's the best person to change our union. First of all, he has taken the job with the wage that he has now, 38,000, I think, and 32. Unlike all other candidates, he has rejected 100,000. Can we really believe in someone else but Paul? Only a person who is living with the same wage like us, only a person who feels our conditions, only a person who faces our challenges, our daily and life challenges, can feel us, can understand what we are going through. Only a person who has such small wage can understand how we feel by the end of the month when we have to pay all these bills. Only a person like Paul can really stand for our rights and fight for us. That's why I have chosen Paul, and I'm a person who will be able to understand our conditions. Another thing that I've chosen Paul for is his leadership that is inclusive. Paul has thought about retired members. I'm urging Paul also to think, and I believe he will think of including more Black members in leading positions. We need to see more Black members in leading positions. I believe that Paul is the only person who can understand and feel our need to be part of the decisions that are being taken for our lives. The other thing I want to say, in our branch, we were not able to take part in many things. We made the change, and now we are part of the decision. Change is very important. In Leicester branch, we are able to participate now in decisions that are taken. We need to make the change because it's very important. Please, I'm urging all Black members to vote for Paul. Believe in Paul. That's my intervention. Thank you.
Thanks, Olfa, for that. Thanks ever so much. That's terrific. That was terrific. And thanks for all the hard work you're doing in your branch as well in representing people as the international stuff.
We are lucky. We are lucky. Thank you.
I'm really grateful for what you do. Our next speaker is Tomo. Andrew Thompson. Tomo is the Equalities Officer up in the Kirklees branch. Over to you, Tomo.
Thank you. Like you say, I'm the Equalities Officer in the Kirklees branch, where Paul is he's in charge of the branch. And I've got first-hand experience on how Paul works and how he has conducted. Paul, whenever there's been issues or any other problems, Paul has stood by him, whether it's from the private sector through to the council workers. Paul has always been there and has always supported everybody. One of the longest strikes I know within the council was the home care workers, which went on for over 12 months. And Paul was there backing them and supporting them and giving them everything that they needed, helping them. I work within the council and work on the on refuse collections, work emptying bins. And 2018 was on strike over several issues: racism, bullying and harassment. And Paul again stood by the members, helped them out and give us everything that we needed. And this is the type of leadership, Paul, that what Paul does. He will stand by the members, help them, and he will guide them in the direction that they need to go in, and he will never mislead them. Whether it's the direction that, because sometimes, as we know with members, they can get a bit upset and wild and want to go in one direction, and Paul will gently lead them down the right path that they need to go and show them the right way and not the wrong way, so they will get the result that they want at the end of the day. And that's what Paul can do for the members. We have a reasonable Black members group that Paul has supported through the years, giving us the support and the help that we need and wanted as well. So I am supporting Paul for these reasons. Paul is a good leader. He's given the support to the members when they wanted it, and he will continue giving the support in a wider range if he becomes the General Secretary. Hopefully he will become the General Secretary. So I am urging all members to vote for Paul and get behind him. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomo. Thanks for that. Really grateful. It's good having people along. At the number of these meetings have had direct experience with Paul in individual struggles, and all of them, to a person, have actually spoken up about the levels of support that's given them. It makes you proud to be associated with him. Our next speaker is Ameen Hadi. Ameen is the chair of the Northwest Black Members Committee. Ameen.
Thank you, John. I'm really proud to be speaking on behalf of Paul at this meeting. And I think it's really important time, specifically for Black workers at the moment. We face the threat of the disproportionate impact of COVID. And there's a very helpful report that came out from Doreen Lawrence this week with regard to some of the demands we should be making on this government. And also we have the response and growth of a worldwide Black Lives Matter movement, well overdue for fighting for our equal rights. And therefore, what sort of leader UNISON has is so important at the moment. Black workers have suffered in terms of discrimination, didn't start with COVID. It's deep rooted within British society. And although our union makes words and says that it wants to do the right thing with regard to racism, the two key things that stick out in my mind in the last 10 years, where we could have challenged the low pay that black workers and women workers face in the workplace, our leadership were found wanting. When I first became an officer in Salford City UNISON, we were thrown into the struggle over the attack on our pension rights. And unfortunately, after one day of fantastic action that took place across our, not just our union, but unions across the public sector struck together, it was our leadership, unfortunately, that walked away from that battle and severely weakened our pensions. And a few years later, we had a fight over our pay. Again, people have commented about how badly we've suffered under austerity in terms of our paying conditions, particularly black workers and women workers at the forefront of that. And again, our leadership was found wanting and called off the action in 2014 again. And those are not just important because it adversely affected our workers. It was important because they were also opportunities to bring our members together and offer a different sort of politics, a politics of hope for people that wanted to see unity in action. And that was just, and that opportunity was lost by that leadership. And these are real things that affect all workers, disproportionately affect black and women workers, but they're things that the union says it believes in, but then when it's found to campaign has been falling short. And I think that's so important at the moment. I mean, I didn't have to hesitate to know that Paul would issue a statement in support of Jeremy Corbyn today. And that is 100% the right thing to do. And he's the only candidate, as far as I'm aware, that has done that immediately and shown his solidarity and support. Because whatever, Jeremy Corbyn has been at the forefront of the anti-war movement, of the anti-racist movement in this country. And for him to be maligned in that way and accused in a certain way is not the right way to do. And we should all offer our solidarity and support, because an attack on him is an attack on black workers in our union. It's an attack on anyone that wants to see social justice and a fight for all our rights. And I think that's why we need a different sort of leadership that Paul offers. We need somebody who's going to stand up and say what is right and fight for our rights and stand with the struggles that are resisting what the government is trying to do now. Because we face a second wave, and we probably face a third wave in terms of cuts to our jobs and our services that's going to come from the crisis that's going to come now, where the Tories are going to try and make us pay. And so that's why we stand behind Marcus Rashford. That's why we stand for everyone that wants to fight against injustice of the Tories trying to make us pay for their crisis. And we all need to stand together. And I'm confident that with the Paul Holmes victory, we can start to change our union, but also have a big impact, you know, about how we fight for social justice and against discrimination at the same time. So I'm really proud to be part of this campaign, and we just need to get out there, get speaking to people, and I'm sure we can win.
Thanks, Ameen. Thanks ever so much. That was terrific, and thanks for the reference to Jeremy as well. I was with him an hour ago, and what we're trying to do now is basically exactly the same as Paul has done this evening. And you're right; he's the only UNISON candidate who's made any statement on this. He's calling for Keir Starmer and the party to think again about this. This is a real mistake, and Jeremy needs reinstating as rapidly as possible. And I'm glad Paul put that statement out. Disappointing the others haven't, really is, but that's the whole basis about showing leadership, isn't it? And that's exactly what Paul has done on this issue. Right, we've got a series of questions now that people have submitted on the chat and elsewhere. And I'll throw those at Paul and the rest of the members of the panel if you'd like to comment as well. Let me just go through them. I've got them on my phone here. They've been transferred over. Okay. This is from Kamal Yusuf from Birmingham. How do you think UNISON can tackle ongoing structural inequality in the light of COVID-19 and its disproportionate impact affecting black members? Something you've raised before, Paul, about the various reports about how COVID has affected the BAME community, what we can do about it as a union. Over to you, Paul, and I'll invite others to come in as well.
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things on this, Chair. And because there's very rarely one answer to one question. You know, on one side of the issue is the issue that Ameen referred to earlier on, is the issue of the disproportionate amount of black workers in low-paid jobs in care, in the National Health Service, where obviously you're exposed to the PPE and the sort of medical side of things, where you actually are in the front line. But there's also a report that I read, which I found really interesting, and I didn't expect to enjoy reading the report. It was a report a couple of months ago by the British Medical Association on why something like 85% of doctors who died in the from COVID were black. And the survey, I hadn't expected it, and I should have done. And it's why when you're reading statistics, sometimes you have to read them with an open mind, because what comes out isn't what you expect. And what this report said was that actually one of the main reasons in the survey, what the BMA had done, was that black doctors felt 3 times as much pressurized to go into dangerous COVID situations as the white counterparts. That because of institutional racism, managers were choosing them to do things that were unsafe in front of white doctors. And I hadn't thought about that. The answer is, I don't work in the health service, but it's how you. So there's 2 separate issues there. One was the institutional racism, which allowed managers to pick on black doctors who wouldn't be seen normally as disadvantaged members of staff. And then the other hand is the disproportionate amount of people working in low-paid jobs, particularly in care and in the health service, where there's less thought about what the pressures on them are. So both them issues are dealt with really by tackling the issue of institutional racism. It's got to be tackled. And for me, you've got to explain the problems to the members, and the white members need to understand what the black members are facing. That can only do that by the union coming together and say, these are the issues. This is a trade union issue facing a group of our members. They've met, they've discussed it. This is what they said to the union. The union's discussed it, and this is what we're saying to you. And it becomes the union position then. And the union position is important because it carries authority. And that's why the leadership of the union has to carry that authority. If they say, you know, the members aren't stupid. The members are not stupid. If there's a demonstration about Black Lives Matters or about NHS pay, and the union banners are not on the demonstration, and the full weight of the union is not behind it, the members start thinking, oh, why aren't we giving full support to this? And that's what leadership's about. It's not about thinking, what can I say that causes the least offence? I'm not bothered about offending somebody who's trying to do our members in. I'm bothered about representing our members. That's what I'm bothered about, and the legitimate issues.
Other members of the panel want to come in on that one.
Yeah, I'll say something. I think the branches could have done a lot more to keep in contact with members, which there seems to be a lack of support with black members. There've been people, I was sent home myself, self-isolating from March till August, no contact with the branch. And the one thing I didn't realise part way through this, I actually did suffer from depression, and I've never suffered from it before, and I didn't know what was going on. And I think the branches could have done a lot more to keep in contact with members, especially any of those that do suffer with mental health issues, and just offered any support that they needed at the time, and just to make sure that we're all right, because we have heard that there's been up and down the country people that have suffered with them and committed suicide, unfortunately. And I think there could have been a lot more done from the union and the branch level as well.
So another reason why we need to get the resources down to the branches, isn't it, as much as possible, and maximise the effect of the branches at that local level. Let me throw in another question, which is related to it, really. Bucky Othniel Nuhu, who's the Southeast region, from the Southeast region, how do you assure us, Paul, you'll make a difference and fight for the interests of the oppressed and suppressed BAME members of the union? how can we really reassure people that that's going to be, well, at the top and close to the top of your agenda?
I think there's two things I want to say about that, really. One is going backwards. You look at my track record, and what Tom just talked about earlier, the 2018 bin strike, which were really archetypical of what racism is all about. You know, on the bins in Kirklees, in Huddersfield, which is the major depot in Kirklees, the 25% of the bin workers are Afro-Caribbean. And a lot of them bin workers were born in the West Indies. And I were down in London at the UNISON headquarters at a meeting, got a phone call from the management to say that the bin workers were refusing to go out in the afternoon, and could I condemn it and get them back to work? And which I refused, because they didn't know what the issue was. Rang up the branch office. Two stewards who were there, two leading stewards, went straight up to the bins. And there were all this stuff appeared in the newspapers about violence and blocking people going out to work, and bin wagons being parked across the entrance to the depot. And, you know, I had to condemn it. And I said, I'm not condemning anything. I haven't seen anything, I haven't heard it. And when we came back, we talked to the members, and the members told us what had happened to them. And I was absolutely horrified. Members had stood up at meetings with management and senior managers who on 70, 80, 90,000 pounds a year, and asked them to sit down because their accent was so strong that they couldn't understand what they were saying, and they didn't want to hear what they were saying. Please sit down, the manager says. I can't understand a word you're saying. It's impossible to understand you. And the council's got equality policies coming out of its ears. But a manager felt he could talk to members like that. And the dispute were really interesting, because actually, when we met the members, there's nothing took place. You know, we watched the video of the depot because it's security video. Nothing had happened. There were no parking. There were no threats. It was like anybody's ever seen in a dispute. It was just people stood about with their hands in their pockets, kicking stones about, waiting for somebody to come out and talk to them about a genuine grievance who didn't want to address them. And when I actually spoke to the members, when I heard the horrific story, the racism involved were unbelievable. Stuff that I hadn't heard for 30 to 40 years. Yet management felt confident enough to use expressions like that. And they used expressions like that because the bin workers were low paid. And in their minds, the management's minds, they were of low value, and you could talk to people like that because they were of low value. And what was interesting in the meeting with the members was actually it were the white members who stood up and said, I'm ashamed of myself. I should have said something when that happened. And it were only when that started to happen. Some black workers didn't want to put complaints in because they didn't want to be victimised again. They're already being victimised. They want to be victimised again. They want to be picked on. And it were only when the united workforce came together and started saying this is unacceptable, and some white members stood up and said we should have walked out 2 months ago over these issues, that the situation changed. So that strike was for a week. The vote to come out indefinitely. The indefinite strike never happened because two managers involved in the racism and bullying got voted. So that's backwards. I've got a track record. But going forwards, because people can change, we've all seen that way. We've all seen I firmly believe that leaders should be kept on a short leash. I've said in my manifesto, there's going to be a lay body set up in this union that every year can measure me against what I've said I'm going to do. And they can do a report back to the union conference saying, this is what Paul said he would do. This is what he's done. And we're telling you that. Honestly, you have to have that. Otherwise, people rest on the laurels or some history of something they did before. So the answer to the question is, A, I've got a track record supporting these issues. Andrew was one of the workers that were on strike. But B, I'm setting up a body to make sure that we're measured. That we're not some high-paid people, but a lay body that can say, well, these are the 12 things that Paul said he'd do. And the final part of it is, I've vowed to have a leadership school where you're not going to be measured by your politics, your background, your ethnicity, your religion. You're going to be measured by your talent, your zeal, and your enthusiasm. And anybody who comes forward will be encouraged to come forward. There's a team here that can get bigger and bigger, and that's how you do it.
Thanks, Paul. There's another question that's come in. I think it's from Donna Hollett up in Knowsley. What would you do if you're successful to deal with the discrimination faced by the LGBT community, which has increased with hate crime on the rise, cuts to safe places, cuts to support and services, and the Gender Recognition Act being shelved by the Tory government? Linked to that is, does Paul think the self-organised groups in UNISON are a positive force within the union?
Well, I'll answer the second question first.
Yeah.
They have been a positive force in the union, and they've been encouraged. They were very difficult when it set up. There were a lot of resistance to it from branches because it was something they hadn't experienced before. But I think one of the failures has been, it's not a failure of the group, it's a failure of the union, is to set up transmission lines between the self-organised groups and what they debated, and that were completely legitimate to debate within their own structures. But if they come up with issues that they want the branch to address, or the union, regional union to address, we need to set that umbilical cord up where it can be addressed, because there is no point in a self-organised group coming together to draw really good policies that only they know about. You know, the union's got to say, well, thanks for these reports, come along to the branch committee or the regional conference or the national conference. And when that becomes the policy of the union, because you've got the most legitimate right to discuss it, the union's going to carry out. It's absolute. I had this example once. It's a different example, but it's important. When we found that in one of the departments in the council, white managers were putting up nude posters of women. And I raised it, and the stewards raised it, and the management sent an email around saying, the union's raised this issue, will you take the posters down? I said, it's nothing to do with us. It's the council's policy. We were telling you to bring it down because it's the council's policy. You should be implementing it, just the same as the race policy on the bins. But they somehow think the council policy is what's in the book or on a computer. So the question about the LGBT plus is the same question, really. You sort of, if you were LGBT plus and black, then you would be doubly discriminated at. Whoever is being discriminated against, when there's a lack of when there's cuts, a lack of resources, when people management don't care, then you're doubly indemnified against what's going on. And we've got to eliminate discrimination. Now, everybody can say that. It's dead easy to come up with this sort of, oh, yes, we've got to eliminate discrimination. But if you're going to convince the members, then you've got to say how you're going to do it. It goes back to my original two questions. What's your solution to my problem? And have I got confidence that you can sort it out? And the black members on the bins on their confidence when they felt the same suffering coming forward from the white members saying we should have done something. Similarly, with the first part of the question we've just had now, the union's got to give it prominence. Not say, oh, the self-organised group deals with that. The self-organised group doesn't deal with it. They discuss it. They have a free and open discussion without fear of being picked on or fear of being discriminated against. And then there's a vehicle for that to come back to be the union's policy. And once it carries the label of the union, then you can do it. But you've got to carry the label of the union, not saying, oh, well, we don't want to oppose that, but we'll just pass it at conference and we won't do anything about it. It's doing something about it. And when I'm the leader of this union, if I'm elected the General Secretary, these issues will be given prominence, but they won't just be passed at conference and put somewhere. We'll be then discussing with the members who brought them policies forward from them self-organised groups how best to implement them. I can't decide how to implement them. We need to say to them, well, we've got these policies, it's been agreed by the union. Let's start discussing how we implement them. You know, that is the only way forward. And to convince the whole membership, if the only people who know that there's an issue are the people who are suffering from the issue, it's very difficult. It's an individual issue, but a union is a collective organisation. And that's how it changes. When the collective organisation says there's 100 banners on that demonstration, when the collective organisation says I'm answering that question on Newsnight and Question Time. I'm exposing that issue. That's when it becomes an issue for sorting out.
This is a question for the whole of the panel, including yourself, Paul, and it's basically how do we encourage more Black members to get more involved in UNISON? I'd like the whole panel to discuss this now, if we could. Ameen, will you kick off?
Happy to. Look, I think my experience in the last 6 months during the COVID crisis is that we've had more involvement from Black members in our union than ever before. They're more obviously worried about their health and well-being than ever before, and are fearful at work and of their rights and of potential death. But they're also being invigorated by the Black Lives Matter movement to start to make demands. And more of them want to learn how to be active in the union and be involved in their branches and within union organisation. And it's how we harness that and encourage and support that growth. Rather than seeing the union as something does someone for you, that actually what the union is about is for people actually themselves being part of that change themselves and feeling like they've got a role to be able to develop themselves as well as play an important part of the union. We have to give power back to the members and not just say it's something conferred by the leader upon us. Obviously, the right leadership can support those structures and develop those people and encourage them to take part in the union. And that's what's so much lacking. I mean, UNISON has lost activists. Even in terms of turnout in elections, we've gone down over the last 15 years in terms of people who participate. But actually, there's an opportunity to build that grassroots up and those activists, Black members, with the right leadership and the right support, we can encourage them to become leaders in the future of our union.
Thanks, Ameen. Olfa.
Hiya. As a Black member of UNISON, I felt during COVID period, but the lockdown, our branch was very close to us. I felt also many Black members were really involved. Our branch kept in touch with us through WhatsApp, that Black members group. So a simple question, how are you, was very useful for us. We felt that we are not neglected, even though we had to self-isolate, for example, for myself, March. So some colleagues were asking, how are you? Do you need anything? Some videos. This is the way we have to help people, Black members, and make them feel they belong somewhere. They are heard. We care about them. And I believe what Paul is saying, and to be honest, I feel really more comfortable with my choice with Paul, because I feel like this is the person who understands our needs, the person who really got it. Yes, it's not about our self-organized groups. It's not about Black member groups that will have to do the bit. It's the whole union, the whole ship has to support these groups. Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Olfa. Tomo, did you want to come in?
Yes. Just going to go back to the bin strike, and another strike that we had were a unique care strike, and many of the members in the unique care strike were Black members, where Paul did meet with them and encourage them to get actively involved and come out to do meetings, talk to other people. And that's what Paul does. He encourages them to come out and talk to people. And it will, like with the Black members that he's mentioned, talking about them being frightened to come forward. And it was the encouragement from Paul, the support from Paul, that they came forward, in the end came forward and give statements. But not only that, but Paul said he would stand by them. The union wouldn't walk away from them. They would be there, backed and support, and that gave them the encouragement. And Paul, he also said as well to all our Black members is, if there's any problems coming, any trouble coming your way, I will be there to deflect it from you, and I will protect you as best as I can within the way I can do. And that is what Paul does, and that's his leadership. The other thing as well with Paul is he came out to meet the members and talk to them. They wanted a meeting. Paul made himself available as soon as he could do, and he came and talked to them. And I think that's what we need, is a leadership that will come out, approach the members and talk to them, especially the black members, and get them more involved. And I think that's what Paul will definitely do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Paul, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, one short point, Chair. I once heard somebody say this, a branch secretary say this many years ago, and I hate it. And somebody came to discuss a problem, and the branch secretary said, "Thank you for your interest. Goodbye." And I hate that statement, "Thank you for your interest." It's so condescending. Well, you know, everybody will tell you in the union, I understand the union, I talk to everybody. Everybody will tell you in the union that 80% of the stewards in the union have come forward because they have suffered something in a restructure, in bullying, in harassment, racism. They've suffered some themselves and thought somebody needs to do something about this. So 80% of our stewards coming forward have experienced a wrongdoing at work. And if you talk to them properly and say, look, the only way we're going to sort this out in the long run is to have more of us sorting this out, not thank you for your interest, as though you're some sort of professional person who can sort things out for people, you're some superhero who can sort things out. You know, by and large, you reverse the question when it's asked of you, and you say, I didn't know about this problem. We need to sort this problem out. How many people can we get involved to sort it? And that's how you increase the involvement in the union. That's how people come forward. And I promise you that 80% of the stewards, if you ask them this question, when did you get involved? When I were involved in a problem. The answer to the problem is, come and join us and we'll sort the problem for you.
Thanks, Paul. That's really helpful. Well, we're virtually at the end of the meeting now, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming along. The key issue now is how important this union election is, and the key issue for all of us is that we've got to get out to vote, but also we've got to encourage others to vote as well. So we'd like you to, of course, support Paul. If you are supporting Paul, please talk to other members of the union to come out and vote as well. Paul, have you got any last words before we close the meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Just got one thing to say, really. I think the big change in the union that I want to see is this. The mood's changing among the workforce, the mood's changing in British society, but the mood's changing among the employers as well. They're getting more hard-faced, they're getting more confidence. They like the crisis because they think they can bully people with the crisis. And I say to all the stewards, all the reps, all the people who want to be stewards and reps, this is the one statement that every steward and rep wants to hear. The General Secretary has got your back. And people need to know that. People have got mortgages, they've got rents, they've got families, they've got people that they care for, you know, elderly relatives or whatever. They can't afford to lose the job. But we can't afford for them to keep their head down all the time, because it just gets worse and worse and worse. So from the top of this union, the motto has to be, the General Secretary's got your back. This union has got your back. There'll be no private conversations about this black member's a problem or this LGBT plus person is a problem. There'll be no conversations like that. It'll be, they've got to, I say that when I go to, when I get to workplace, everybody knows what management says. Here comes trouble. And I always give the same answer. There is trouble. That's why I've come and we need to sort it out. So I say to all the reps, existing in future, this union will have your back if you elect to fight in leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And thanks again for everyone attending. And thanks also to Dan and John Burgess and all the others who've helped organise tonight's meeting. Let's get out there and let's vote. Let's encourage people to vote. And, well, let's win this election. Because, as I say, this is, I suppose, the most important election most of us have seen in this union for a very long time. Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Chair. Cheers.